Okay, I'm going again. You rolling? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's the Stack Awards. It's just two middle-class white dudes talking about movies.
Who wants to know more about culture?
No one else has ever thought to do a recording of them talking about movies until just now.
And you wait till we talk about our sexualities as well. You will not be surprised.
How did this come about?
I don't know. We value our opinions too much because,
Yes.
as the aforementioned demographic details. But I know. Everyone gets a bit like award happy when the award season happens. Obviously later this year because of the plague. But you get into that mode of like trying to watch all these movies for the sake of it, and then you're like, then the awards happen. You're like, why did I watch half of these films that I had no interest in? I must make some use of my life. And also you become like incessantly angry of, out of these 5 films I didn't mean to watch, why did you pick that one movie that I also was never going to watch? So it's, I don't know, a sense of poetic justice to put conventional award ceremonies in their place, I think. Yeah, so what we're going to do, so the Stacks Awards, the Stephen and Jack Awards, I am Stephen, that is...
I am Jack.
That's useful. There you go. Works out nicely. We're going to go through our categories, but we also, because this was kind of like birthed through the Letterboxd Discord. Is it the Letterboxd Reddit Discord? Or can I just call it the Letterboxd Discord?
Yeah, it's the Reddit Letterboxd Discord server. Yeah, that's the one.
However, it has very few links to the actual Reddit, really, so don't be scared by Reddit. We also have, so we've got our categories, which we'll go through in an order that we have curated beautifully. But for each one, we put out a audience vote in the Discord, which was obviously sabotaged in grand ways, which I very much brought up on myself.
The most chaotic audience Google Doc ever made. But...
Yeah, it was, but I actually went through the effort of tackling it up, and actually, there were enough normal people to get some normal results. The results are really interesting. Obviously, the official stack is what we choose, which we will spend a little time debating, but not very much. It's more being like, this is what I think, this is what you think, and this is the middle ground. It's not
Let's
about...
call the whole thing off.
Yeah, exactly. Potato stacks.
Sounds delicious.
So yeah, what we'll do for each category, if there is an Oscar category that lines up, we'll say what the Oscars went for and be like, interesting. We'll say what the audience went for, and then we'll have our conversation.
First up is actor in a leading performance.
Yeah, so male actor in leading performance. We're going to start off with the leads. We thought we'd go with a big one here. Obviously, this was how the Oscars ended. Which,
yes, and we're flipping it on its head. We're doing it different.
Yeah, which was a bold choice. So if you remember, the Oscars nominated Anthony Hopkins for The Father, Riz Ahmed for Sound of Metal, Chadwick Boseman for Murray's Black Bottom, Gary Oldman for Mank, and Stephen Yeun for Minari. You saw all those movies, yes?
I saw all those ones. Yes, I did. No, I didn't see. Chadwick Boseman's performance.
Okay, it's really good. Yeah, it's really, really good. It was deserving of an Oscar. Didn't get it. Obviously, it went to Anthony Hopkins. We'll get to that, I guess. Because I guess we'll get to that. We'll see if we've actually nominated him or not. I know you watched The Father yesterday.
I watched it last night, and I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah, it's really good. But I don't know. We'll see. Of those 5, are there any that stand out as being like, huh?
Gary Oldman.
Yeah.
Gary Oldman playing a 35-year-old man at the age of, I don't know, like a ripe 60 these days. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have my problems with Mank. Gary Oldman isn't the main part of my problems with Mank, but I think his performance was bang average.
Yeah, it's absolutely fine. He is an actor that can act, and he has a script the script is probably the biggest issue of that film.
The 30-year-old script that should have been made 30 years ago.
The script that's as old as he was playing. He should have played the script.
Absolutely.
All right, tell me, who have you got up for this? Because mine is weird.
Me and the Oscars have some similarities, and then I've gone a different way as well. So I've gone five noms for this one, yeah?
Yeah.
I have Riz Ahmed, Sound of Metal.
Interesting.
Stephen Yeun, Minari. Sean Parks, Small Axe, Mangrove.
You see, I watched those too long ago that I couldn't think of, and I'm sure that if I watched them again, I had a real struggle with the acting categories in general.
They are tough. They are tough.
I bet if I was to watch any film again, I'd be like, oh, there's a great performance in this. So
it's almost like we made this whole awards ceremony 3 weeks ago when some of these films I watched 8 months ago.
Yeah. Yes.
Anyway, my third nom is Mads Mikkelsen for Another Round. And I'm ending on Anthony Hopkins for The Father.
Oh, interesting. All right. So what I've gone for is Mads Mikkelsen for Another Round.
Yep.
Chadwick Boseman for Marianne's Black Bottom, which I'm going to say because I did see that movie and he's fantastic in it. I went for Delroy Lindo for Da 5 Bloods.
Okay. Yep.
Which I was astonished that because that film I like more than most people. But I was astonished
I remember seeing that got snubbed quite a bit.
Yeah, I thought that was the place it was going to go. I think that was maybe the best performance of the year. We'll talk about that. I'm going to go for, here's my weird one, Pekka Strang from Dogs Don't Wear Pants.
That's a film you told me to watch that I still have not got round to watching, and it will probably be a year or two before I even think about it. But talk to me.
It's a film that on paper sounds like it's a dead wife movie and an S&M movie of being like, guy's wife dies, which pushes him down into the world of like BDSM, and it's very telling that his performance is so good and so like poetic that it brings like such like fragile masculinity to the film. And why the film is so good as well is it balances him with really strong female characters, so it doesn't feel like we killed a woman to make a man. It's about these other women in his life constructing this male persona, about letting him about himself, and it's such a balancing act, the entire film, to actually work, and for him to be at the centre of thing, to make actually quite a funny film about very dark topics. He has this like dad humour straight down. It's not a one that I want to win, but it's one of those things being like, if I watch this movie, it was a great performance, it's never going to get noticed, so
yeah, it's
there you go.
Worth a shout out. Yeah, okay, awesome.
And my last nominee here is Lakeith Stanfield, who I'm maintaining is the lead actor in Jizz Messiah.
We briefly talked about this in Discord DMs last night, but what is how do you decide these days what is a leading and supporting performance?
I mean, it's kind of nonsense, isn't it? But for me, the film follows his story. The arc of the film begins and ends with his story, and he is the person that dictates where the narrative goes.
He's the crux of the narrative.
The betrayer. He's the Judas.
Yeah, absolutely. He's the titular Judas.
The titular Judas.
See, the thing is, I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but I've got him in the supporting category.
I feel like this goes two ways for me. Like, either you put them both as leads,
or both supporting,
but then what I've actually got clear as a supporting, because I feel that I feel the way their performances work is Lakeith is building the narrative of the film, and Daniel Kaluuya is there to support emotional beats and be the thing the film keeps a distance from, but every now and then provides the energy to it. But I feel like the timbre of the movie is very much with Lakeith, so I've put him in this category.
Okay,
but
that makes sense.
So
no, I agree with that 100%. Yeah.
Of those, who is your winner?
He's in the MCU. He's in Star Wars. He's in Another Round. It's Mads Mikkelsen.
Ah, yeah. I was tempted, and maybe we'll go for him overall.
Interesting. Who have you gone for? Who was your winner?
I went for Chadwick, and I think his performance is absolutely fantastic in a movie that I think is absolutely okay. And it's those performances are great because it shows you how good acting is. Sometimes you're like, this movie is fine, but this is good. And I think spurred on by the Oscars, I very much am that way as well. If it helps, I can tell you who the audience went for.
Yes, please. That would be lovely.
So the audience went for Riz Ahmed.
Oh, awesome. Okay, interesting. We've both got thoughts on that movie.
Yeah.
I like it more than you.
You do?
I like Riz Ahmed's performance.
I'm going to say this once because I feel it's like such a wider conversation and it's not really my place to have. I was this is my subjective experience, uncomfortable by the casting of Riz Ahmed in this film because I feel the narrative of the film, he spent 1 minute maybe as a hearing person, and the rest of the film he was imitating hearing loss, which I get is acting, but there comes a point where you're presenting disability or different conditions as a challenge for acting, and I just hate that.
It's the problem I had with The Theory of Everything.
Yes, it's not as bad as that. It's nowhere near as bad as that.
No, a film I absolutely despise, and Eddie Redmayne I have many views about, but I feel like Riz Ahmed's performance, I don't know, it did it some justice, but I can completely understand your criticisms.
I think it's a very good version of that, and it goes beyond that because I feel there is so much humanity to the character, and I feel it's helped that he's not playing a real world figure.
No, that would be
Because I think that's so obvious in the Theory of Everything performance of it's just pure imitation. It's so sciencey. It's just horrible for that reason. Whereas Riz Ahmed is there because he can bring character to a role. He's there because he's a great actor. Yeah. All right, the winner then. Who are we deciding on?
I mean, I haven't seen Chadwick's performance, and that's my bad. I spent a lot of this year not watching any of these films and watching, I don't know, Godzilla films, but that's a conversation for later. I think this is down to you. You've seen both the films. I will completely trust your judgment if you want to go with Chadwick.
No, I think we should go with Mads. I really do. I think it's an interesting choice. It's a different choice, and because obviously, I think it's nice that we've given I think the way we'll view this is for history. When someone makes the Stacks wiki, there are 3 Stacks awards.
Yes, there's the Jack, the Stephen, and the audience poll, and we're all winners here.
There are 4 actually. Then there's the audience, there's the Stephen, the Jack, and there's the overall. So I'm going to say the Stack goes to Chadwick, and the Stack goes to Mads.
I can't wait to edit all the horrible images for this video.
But the Stack, I think, goes to Mads, because I think the conversation got so torn around with Chadwick and Anthony Hopkins, who are both excellent performances, that Mads, given career best in one of the best careers in film, deserves it. So you know what? Mads Mikkelsen.
Moving swiftly onwards, actor in a supporting role.
I had no idea with this. I just had no idea.
I've got some funny ones.
Okay, because I'm
I'll go
people that are in
first.
films, I guess.
Daniel Kaluuya, Judas and Black Messiah. Robert Pattinson for Tenet. Ooh.
Okay.
Adam Brooks, Psycho Gorman.
Okay.
Alan Kim, Minari.
Hey.
Lakeith Stanfield, Judas and Black Messiah.
Interesting. You didn't go for one that I thought you would go for.
What have you gone for? What do you think I would?
I thought my number one here was what you're going to go for. So Paul Raci, for Sound of Metal, I've got in this category, because I think he is... I wish that film was more his film. Interestingly, I watched an interview with him because I was not sure if it was Rachy or Racy. So I watched an interview, and he spoke about how, because he is a hearing actor, but he is the son of deaf parents. So that is his particular background there. And in his interview, he signed the whole way through it, and his partner was there, who is his agent as well, and they signed as well. So he is very involved with this community. And he spoke about how he'd been working on a screenplay about hearing loss for he said the last 40 years. Obviously that was like a joke. But when this screenplay came across his desk and he auditioned for it, he threw his one away. He's like, this is the film that I wanted to make. And in my mind I've been like, actually, I wish the film that you were working on was more the film that I saw.
Did he give any details to the script he'd been working on at all?
He didn't know, because he was there. It was a puff piece on the red carpet of him to show him how much he loved the movie. And interestingly, he put in his audition and heard nothing back, and his wife, his agent, rang them back again and was like, "Yo, are you considering him?" And they said, "Actually, we've not even looked at his tape. We have too many. We're gonna go for a name instead."
No.
And then they made the case there about why he was so perfect because of his background, and that's how he got it.
That's something that did not translate at all to the film. It's a good bit of context to know as we go into these supporting roles. Who else have you got on your lineup?
Daniel Kaluuya, just Black Messiah. I've gone for Toby Jones from First Cow.
Oh, nice, yeah.
There's one bit in First Cow where Toby Jones just moves his eyes from left to right, and it's the best piece of acting I've ever seen.
One of the best British actors currently working. I love Toby Jones and everything he does.
And my next one is, again, I've kind of done this once per category to shout out a film that not people saw.
Yeah, sure.
I've gone for Michael Stuhlbarg from Shirley, who plays Shirley Jackson's husband in that film. I really like the director, and I liked her previous films a lot more. I specifically love Madeline's Madeline, which I thought was a phenomenal film. So Shirley was a little bit of a disappointment on that front, but was a great acting powerhouse. So Michael Stuhlbarg as Shirley's husband, who I'm sure has a name, but I know that down, is that. And finally, because I just could not think of anyone, I was like, do you know who was good in I'm Thinking of Ending Things? David Thewlis. David Thewlis was good in that one.
Oh, yeah, let's give Thewlis a shout out. Come on, Professor Lupin, let's go.
Yeah. So there you go, David Thewlis from I'm Thinking of Ending Things.
Awesome. Okay, audience pick.
Do you want to guess? I think it's quite obvious. We both nominated them.
Is it Daniel Kaluuya?
It's Daniel Kaluuya, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Who did you pick as your winner?
I picked Daniel Kaluuya.
So did I, which I think therefore makes it obvious.
Well, that's a winner. Yeah, he is the Black Messiah.
Interestingly, the Oscars went for a few different ones. So they went for Clue, and they gave it
Yep.
to Clue. They also nominated Sacha Baron Cohen for Trial of Chicago 7, which I think is a bad performance in a bad film.
Did not see, cannot comment.
It's really bad. They went for Leslie Odom Jr. from One Night in Miami, which is a very good performance in an okay movie.
Okay.
He's the best part of that film, probably. They went for Paul Raci in Sound of Metal, great choice. And they went for Lakeith as supporting. So there you go. You agree with the Oscars. Take that.
Good stuff. Okay, moving on. Actress in a leading performance.
Yeah. Or female lead, whatever
female
nomenclature you want
sure.
to use.
You go for your noms first.
Yeah, mine are weird here.
Cool. Wouldn't expect anything else.
I'm gonna. Okay, I'll read them in the order that I've got them here. I've gone for Andrea Riseborough from Possessor,
Interesting.
who I just thought was phenomenal in what she had to do in that film and how to convey the sense of not being at home in your own skin and be acting several layers deep in acting, but it doesn't feel like an actorly performance. It feels very kind of like natural and spontaneous. So yeah, she is a real contender. Carey Mulligan from Promising Woman, obviously. I've always been a fan. It's one of her best performances, if not her best. Jessie Buckley from I'm Thinking of Ending Things.
Yep.
She's in almost every part of that movie and is just so good and has to do such weird stuff. Morford Clark from St. Maud, which was not a film that I loved, but if there's one great thing about it, it's her performance as Maud. I don't think the script gives her enough to do or diverges enough from familiar material, but her performance is that film. That and some of the visual direction. And finally, Viola Davis from Orange Black Bottom. Again, those two performances are why you watch that film, which is, you didn't watch that film. I'm not saying you should do, but those two are terrific.
Awesome. We have some of the same nominees this year.
Wow.
This year, like we do this every year.
Yeah, like last year was so
last year
different. It was wild.
So, Andrea Riseborough for Possessor.
Yes.
Carey Mulligan, Promising Young Woman.
Yes.
Jessie Buckley, I'm Thinking of Ending Things.
Good.
Frances McDormand, Nomadland. Ooh.
Yep.
And here's my little under the radar, underrated one.
Oh.
Bucky Backray for Rocks.
Yeah, I thought about that, and in the end, you know what? I should have done it.
No spoilers. Spoilers. I'm gonna give it to Bucky Backray for Rocks. Rocks is a 2019 sort of collaborative film, piece of British cinema, using young people getting into acting for the first time. Very collaborative script, collaborative performances, and Bucky Backray is the titular Rocks character in
The
this
eponymous
film.
Rocks.
She plays Dwayne The Rock Johnson in this film about...
Which is really weird. It's a really weird collaborative take on Dwayne The Rock Johnson, but it works.
Rocks is a very important piece of British cinema in that it deals with, young people in the city, and it works around the issues of the lack of parents and a parent leaving. And I think Bucky Backray's performance is so naturalistic because I feel like that character is so homegrown and so close to her own upbringing that I think it's a stunning performance and a beautiful film.
Yeah, it's such a good film about intersecting identities as well and how that complicates things. Like, it's very much a film about how women in general are kind of like maligned by society, but then how like black women and black girls specifically. So it's like, it's this like horrible like maelstrom of three things working against you. Like, society hates young people, it hates women predominantly, it hates black people predominantly. And if you are the three of those things, then you are beaten down so much. And for the film to understand that and for it to foil it cleverly throughout the film, whilst also feeling like it's one of those great films where it feels every inch completely natural, yet it hits all the symbolic and metaphorical points you want it to do, or never feeling like it's being crowbarred towards that. Yeah, it's a phenomenal movie. Absolutely phenomenal.
Who have you gone for? Or should we do the audience as a little man?
Let's go for who the Oscars went for first. Because the Oscars were weird on this one. So they gave it to Frances.
Yep.
They also nominated Viola Davis, like me, so I agree. They nominated Andrew Day for United States vs. Billie Holiday, which is a movie that I watched. That is an abysmal movie.
Ooh, okay.
She is good in it, but the film is terrible. Absolutely terrible. Find my review on Letterboxd or on my blog. It's terrible. They also nominated Vanessa Kirby, who is very, very good in Piece of a Woman, but that movie is such a mess that it's very hard for me to like separate it from that. She's great in it, but there are other people who did amazing things in more additive movies, I guess. And then finally, Carey Mulligan, and they gave it to Frances on the night. Our listeners / our friends gave it to Carey Mulligan.
Okay, awesome. I'm completely happy with that.
Who are you giving? Oh yeah, you're giving.
I get it to Bucky Buckray for Rocks, and who have you gone for?
I've gone for Carey Mulligan.
Okay, awesome. Well, I am more than happy to give it to Carey Mulligan as well.
I like that idea because, like,
it's-
the star arc has gone to an important young voice,
Yes, absolutely.
but the stack has gone to someone that's needed it for a long time and deserved that recognition at the less respected award. But
Moving on to actress in supporting or female supporting role.
I had no idea of this.
This is a weird one.
I almost nominated a cow until I realised the connotations of that.
Okay. Well, I've gone for Olivia Colman for The Father,
I should have done that. Why didn't I do that?
Maria Bakalova for Borat's subsequent movie film,
Yeah.
Amanda Seyfried.
Sorry, can you give me the full title of that film, please?
No, because I simply do not have it written down.
I have it written down and I am going to read it out.
Amanda Seyfried for Mank, the best part of that movie. Elizabeth Debicki for Tenet or Tenet, and Yoon Jung, butchered it like I said I would, for Minari.
Okay, I've gone for Yoo Jun Young for Minari, who I think is similar to the person that you mentioned. These are terrible nominees. I'm really sorry. They're so bad, and I'm also apologising for the people that I'm about to nominate as well because they were all really, really good. I was just like, for all my supporting things, I was like, I guess other people are in movies too. Oh no, I forgot.
Yes.
I've gone for Christine Milotti from Palm Springs. I think she's really funny in that movie.
Yeah, you know what? I considered it.
I've not really seen her in much, and I don't know, like she brings a lot to that film and does stuff, and I think it's just a really good performance. And comedy is a really good acting showpiece and rarely gets acting awards. She's very, very funny, very, very human emotion. I then went for Maria Bakalova from Borat's subsequent movie film Delivery of British Bride to American Regime to make benefit once glorious nation of Kazakhstan.
Oh, it's still good.
And I then went for Dominic Fishback from Judas and the Black Messiah, who I think is secretly maybe the best performance in that film.
Interesting,
because she does something at the end where the film actually speaks without words, which the film almost never does, where it just concentrates on her face and doesn't show you a thing. And I was like, why isn't the movie more of this? So I'm giving it to her for doing that.
Okay.
And finally, Gugu Mbatha Raw for her role in Misbehaviour. Kind of as a pointed thing there of, I don't think you saw Misbehaviour.
No.
I'm not saying you should do.
Okay.
Caveat, a friend of mine is in it.
Oh, wow.
She's an extra, but a featured extra. She plays Miss Philippines. And does actually look quite a lot like Miss Philippines, despite not being Filipino. But there you go, casting. But yeah, Jessie Leong is excellent in that film. Jessie Leong also a filmmaker in her own right, so I'd recommend you find her films. I Am a Fail Runner and Banana Skin, which are excellent little short films. But Gugu Mbatha Raw is the Miss Africa South, as it's called, in that. And this film should be about intersectional feminism, but is very much about the white woman story. And kind of like uses this character as a prop for her story, and I wanted it to be about her story. And it's such a film that doesn't seem to understand the layers of prejudice, and very much kind of like aligns with the lens it perhaps shouldn't do. So this is her nomination because it should be her story. Her story's more interesting, and it's very much like we've seen this kind of film. It feels as dated as the time period, as opposed to pushing through its time period. So the Oscars went for Yoo Jun Yoon. And our people did the same.
Oh, awesome.
And I did the same.
I didn't. Whoops.
Okay.
I went to Amanda Seyfried for Mank because on paper Mank is such a Jack film that I really, really want to find anything to like about Mank, and I think that Amanda Seyfried is the best part of that film. But I'm more than happy to give it to Minari. If the people say it, then I'm listening to the people.
I think it would be nice for us all to line up for once. So Yoo Jun Yoon gets
Stephen,
everything.
are you going to help her off the stage, though?
I would help her off the stage. I would let her insult me for being snobbish. I would let her tell me my ding dong is broken. Anything.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Visual effects. Let's talk
my
big
nominations
nonsense.
are so weird.
Let's talk big nonsense. Let's talk big CGI nonsense, please.
My visual effects nominees may actually show a profound misunderstanding of what visual effects are.
Okay. I'm listening.
So, all right. First of all, I'm going to go for the Oscars here because this was a strange category for the Oscars.
It always is.
It's stranger than normal because usually there are so many blockbusters a year that it's just like, here are the blockbuster awards, and you're like, okay, that's where they get them. But there are so few blockbusters this year. You're just like, there's such like almost films here. You're like, oh yeah, that's a film that came out. I guess that had a CG gorilla in it. Why not?
Okay.
So they went for Tenet, which won, which it seemed like that was their way. They gave Tenet an award.
Yeah.
Please, audience, listen carefully. Let's see if Stephen actually nominates Tenet or not. They went for Love and Monsters, which I did watch because of this, and it has astounding visual effects. Like, it's a great mix of artistic design and like technical proficiency. It is that movie, and it saves that movie in something that's actually quite fun because it is so visually creative. They went for Midnight Sky, which I watched because of this, and is just crap. They went for Mulan, which I watched because of this, and is just crap.
Oh, yeah. Ew.
And I drew the line at the one and only Ivan. I just watched Midnight Sky and Mulan, and I was like, no. So I didn't watch one and only Ivan or
fine.
Ivan. I don't know if that's good or not. It didn't look good. Maybe that gorilla is so good. And Tenet won, obviously.
I bet I've nominated Better Gorilla, though.
Interesting. So, oh yeah, me too. Which I actually edited last minute. I had something else in its place. I don't know what I had in its place. Then I watched it again for a podcast, and was like, I'm an idiot. Why have I done this? So,
Okay,
all
what
right.
have you got?
So I nominated Love and Monsters.
Okay.
Because it's got great CG. I nominated Psycho Gorman because the like effects work for me includes practical effects.
Yes,
it includes,
I'm completely on the same plane there.
makeup, hairstyling, all those kind of things, because we don't have those awards here. And also,
No.
like, visual effects in general is a wide category, and I feel like the effects in Psycho Gorman are that film so much. I nominated Godzilla vs. Kong as a last-minute thing, because the last third of that movie is an effects showpiece. You know what? Actually having effects lets those creatures do things they've not been able to do before. That doesn't transcend Rubber Suit, but shows there is a world outside of Rubber Suit. I then went for Possessor.
Awesome.
Because it just looks incredible.
Yep.
And I went for Obayashi's Labyrinth of Cinema because I think he's doing such bizarre things with the language of film. And I don't know if you'd count it as visual effects, but I don't know why you would not. Of like all this like random overlaying, all this just like messing around with framing, etc. It is such an editing showpiece of a film. So I went for those 5.
Awesome. I have some similarities and some differences. So I have gone for The Invisible Man.
Yep.
Godzilla
I like
vs.
that you
Kong.
couldn't see him.
Godzilla vs. Kong, Psycho Gorman for the exact same reasons you did. Visual effects is more than just someone sat at a computer rendering out a big ape. Sometimes it's about practicality and costuming and little monsters, and I love it all. I've also gone for Possessor because, again, the visual elements of that film are just spellbinding.
And they do have like the best visual effect of that film is just like a filter and a weird mask.
Yes,
It looks so cool.
absolutely horrifying. And I went for Tenet because I like things going backwards.
All right, I'm going to make my case against why I don't think Tenet should be nominated. I know it's your choice.
Hey, don't worry, it's not winning.
But I think the visual effects in Tenet are obviously well orchestrated, but I don't think they're presented well because his need to do everything to actually destroy a real plane, one, I'm going to be pedantic and boring here, is environmentally irresponsible. Like, what are you doing?
It's a big plane. That's a lot of carbon emissions just going into waste. And
second of all, because he has to do it in reality, it really constrains him with what he can do with the camera, and I think it actually makes for very boring scenes. You go, that's an impressive thing to pull off, but it doesn't work very well as a piece of cinema. I'm like, yeah, the camera had to be there because it had to be done
because they
really.
were blowing it up and they can only
I'm
afford
like,
to do it once.
Just put in a few effects shots to just like zuzz up it. His refusal to actually use the wider language of visual effects is really annoying to me. So I'm like, no, you don't get my nomination. Damn it, you don't get it.
So who won at the Oscars? Have I already forgotten? Have you
So
said?
yeah, the Oscars went to Tenet, and our audience
Okay,
gave
yeah.
it to Tenet.
Oh, okay.
So
who did you go for?
I went Possessor.
Bingo. So did I.
Yeah.
Awesome. Easy peasy. Scary film. Cronenberg. Best animated film. Feature film.
I've nominated a film I haven't seen.
Sure. Do you know what? Fine. Go for it.
All right. I think the background here is that the Oscars and what they nominate and what they always nominate, and how this category is just shat upon every time.
Oh, you mean what always wins as well?
Yeah. It's
just
it's
Pixar.
is there a Pixar film?
It's the Pixar award.
Yeah. So I watched every nominee for animated film because I like animated films and I think they don't get enough love in the Oscars and they nominate weird things. And also, and this makes me sound like a very bitter person, I wanted to find enough reason to not nominate Soul because I don't like Soul very much.
Which is a very controversial opinion in the circles we run in the film world. I can imagine it probably gained the audience poll if Wolfwalkers didn't.
Well, we're going to find out that.
People love Soul, and I have so many problems with Soul, although it is up for some other awards in other categories for me.
Yeah, I've even got it winning an award.
Yep, okay. So who have you got? Who have you gone for? What film didn't you see that you nominated?
All right, so you told me The Mitchells versus the Machines is good.
I think it's great. I've nominated it too. I think it's a lot of fun, and I think Sony Animation are doing a lot of interesting things these days.
So yeah, I nominated that because I'm sure I would prefer it to Soul. I was going to watch it last night, but Emma chose a film instead that was terrible. Wasn't her fault. So we watched Things Heard and Seen instead. Yeah, that film's terrible. So the Oscars nominated Soul, and it won. They nominated Onward, Over the Moon, a Shaun the Sheep movie of Armageddon, and Wolfwalkers.
Okay.
Of those, I've seen them all. Over the Moon just isn't very good, and disappointingly so. It's just quite a boring pedestrian film that uses quite a different aesthetic. It may sound like intolerant to say that using kind of like Chinese mythology is a different aesthetic, but I mean different in that it's not what mainstream film goes to, especially animated film. Sure. But annoyingly, it uses that aesthetic to tell a very conventional story, so it feels like set dressing, and the film just becomes very, very boring. Also, spoilers for Over the Moon, spoilers for the first 5 minutes of Over the Moon. I watched the first 5 minutes, paused the film, walked upstairs, and I went, Emma, all right, this film starts with a mother, a father, and a young daughter. What happens in the first 5 minutes?
The parents die?
Yeah, which one, though?
The mother.
Yeah, turns out dead wife movie, and I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Christopher Nolan, executive producer.
it's first 5 minutes of the movie, and I don't know, like, whatever. So it did not make mine. So my nominees are Wolfwalkers, Onward, which I really liked, which is such a shame. Farmageddon.
I will see that at some point, just because I like Aardman.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's just more sheep antics.
Mitchell's versus the Machines.
Hell yeah.
Which, again, not a movie that I've seen. And Josep, which is
I don't know that one.
It's really cool. It was released by Mubi this year. It's a Spanish-French animation about... It's just really good. This is one for people to seek out and watch. It is about an artist that survived fascism and later was part of the art scene along with Frida Kahlo. And it's very much this great story of how art can be an escape, but how art cannot be an escape. And the language of the film is very much in dialogue with the expression of the film. It uses 2D animation so well. It knows you can do whatever you want with a frame, that you can just like blend and move things and just like change it up on the fly. It's a really cool thing. And I'm like, what? Why does the Oscars exist if not to nominate things like this? Why are we putting fucking Over the Moon up for an Oscar as opposed to this really important, really experimental feature film? It's not even a short, like, animated feature that is brilliant. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever.
Here are mine. I've seen all 5 of these. I've gone for Onward.
Yes.
A film I like, don't love, could have been better. It's a mix of things I love dearly, and it's fantasy and comedy and adventure.
You love Chris Pratt. You love Chris Pratt.
Me and Chris Pratt and Tom Holland, some of the most overused actors in Hollywood, in my opinion. I've gone for Mitchells versus Machines, a fantastic piece of animation, a really nice story, so much visual flair. Wolfwalkers, one of the best films of the year.
Yep.
And I've gone for Raya and the Last Dragon.
I should have watched it. Why didn't I watch that?
Because I didn't want to nominate Soul because I have so many problems. My 5th nominee is the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special. A film I think is better than Rise of Skywalker and does a lot more interesting things with the Star Wars canon than Episode 9 did.
Oh, that's very funny. Should we explain our issues with Soul?
My problem with Soul is that it's Pixar's first lead black male performance, and 67% of the film he is a small blue blob or a cat. Yeah,
the ideas about agency and like pushing people's consciousness into other things, and that not being like, it's not a Get Out thing. This is not making comments about how like people of color are subjugated by like white people. This is just so tone deaf. Like, I don't know what they didn't think. And also the casting of Tina Fey, like Tina Fey, who has a history of like using blackface,
very problematic actress. Yeah,
doubling down on it, and then having her voice a black body. It's just like, what are you doing, film? And like, I hate to be the person that says even that aside, because I'm like, I have further issues with the film.
Oh no, yeah,
I just like it. It has an ending that completely undercuts anything it was going for. Because at the end, you have the idea that it must be for children. Like, if your film must be for children, make it a children's film throughout. Don't just go at the end. We build up to a theme, then go, oh crap, that's not child friendly. Bring it back. And it's just, I think visually it's fantastic. I think the sound and the music, which I have nominated later, is fantastic. The narrative is just kind of boring, and then racially insensitive, and then stupid.
If you told me that there would be a film about a struggling jazz musician trying to find his way in the world, I would have told you that would be my favourite film of the year, and I was severely disappointed with it.
Yeah, I mean, I am a struggling jazz musician trying to find my way in the world.
Exactly. This is us on film, but sadly, Pixar just couldn't go all the way with their representation, and had to make it a inside-out blob movie.
Yeah,
Whatever. Anyway,
the audience?
Who have the audience gone for?
Oh, they went for Wolfwalkers, quite convincingly. I was so happy.
Good, because I've also gone for that.
So far, it's phenomenal. I mean, I'm going to give your piece on why Wolfwalkers is great.
So I've only seen, I think that's the only Cartoon Saloon animated film
Me too.
I've seen so far. I do need to catch up on them. I hadn't even heard of it until people in the Letterboxd Discord server started singing its praises. Shout out to Ruben, who loves Cartoon Saloon and Wolfwalkers. Yeah, it's just a beautiful 2D animation piece of sort of folklore. It's beautiful colours, beautiful storytelling, and it pushes the boundaries of what you can do in modern 2D animation.
Yeah, and I've read really good reviews on it on Letterboxd and off of like people really getting into like the visual design of it, of how like different visual styles are used for the different sides of a conflict, which I didn't write about as well when I wrote about it, because that's not really my kind of like leisure domain. I'm not that. It's not my go-to, but for me, like, to begin with, I'm like, oh, cool. This is another version of a story I've seen a lot before. It's Princess Mononoke again. I was like, cool, love Mononoke, this is great. Until I realised that actually this is completely different, because it does not take place in fantasy world. This uses the concrete nouns of colonialism and oppression in a really important way. So to actually meld the story we know to make it accessible, but then be like, no, we're actually going to talk about the oppression of the English onto the Irish, and we're going to talk about this up front and put it in a kids movie, and it's not be like, oh, it's a kind of a metaphor for colonialism. No, it's directly about colonialism, and these are real people abstracted and real things abstracted. I thought was such a bold decision, and it makes it a much more important film. It makes it a much more important thematic work and one of a message, and also be like, yeah, why are we backing away from things? We can make a fantastical film that uses proper nouns, and I was just amazed by that.
Have you seen any other Cartoon Saloon features?
Nope, I need to. Because
I think that's going to be my post-Stacks catch-up project. I think they're doing some really interesting work, and I finally need to dig in and take the time to have a look at some.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that's a sweep again, and the Oscars got it wrong. They gave it to Soul, which was not even nominated,
which was
our audience
not a surprise. I could have.
I feel the need to say though, our audience did. There was quite a lot of votes for Soul, so people really resonated with it. I know that Calvin was a real big fan of Soul, and I know that he has a child, and there's a different perspective there.
Sure.
I'm surprised that it works for children, but if it does, fantastic. That is who it's for ultimately.
Best documentary.
Yeah, I love a doc.
Love a doc. Love a big doc. What have I
big
got? Big
doc energy.
Okay, here we go. My Octopus Teacher, Honey, I Had Sex with the Octopus.
Yeah, so from the Oscars, who gave Shape of Water Best Picture, they give My Octopus Teacher Best Documentary.
Interesting. Someone on the board's got something going on. My Octopus Teacher. Zappa, the documentary about Frank Zappa.
I wish I'd watched that. I like Zappa.
It's very good. Dick Johnson Is Dead.
Cool.
Time.
Yes. Oh, Time is phenomenal.
Feels Good Man.
This was weirdly my hardest one to make. There are so many films I loved this year that I thought would be in any other year would be like, was best documentary. Like Feels Good Man, I thought was phenomenal. Like, why isn't that up there?
I think it's culturally relevant, and it tells just an incredible story, and it sort of reflects the strange online culture we live in.
And yeah, My Octopus Teacher, I actually thought was great. Did not think it would be. did not nominate it. And again, Dick Johnson is Dead. I cried over the death of someone that wasn't dead in that movie.
The way that film twists and turns and plays, the emotional whiplash. Have you seen Camera Person?
No.
Kirsten Johnson's other film is phenomenal. One of my favourite films of recent years.
So yeah, and yet somehow I didn't nominate this film. So sorry, what were your 5 again?
So Feels Good Man, Time, Dick Johnson, Zappa, and Octopus Teacher.
Okay, I've gone for. I thought I was constrained, but I was constrained by a film that you didn't even nominate.
Go for it.
So I nominated. All right, here are my 2 fringe ones. So In Search is a film I watched as part of the Film Africa Festival. It's a really important documentary about female genital mutilation. It's really well done. It's really important, and I just want to put out a shout for it. So In Search, ellipsis, a very good, with the right voices, told in the right way.
Awesome.
It is as heavy as it needs to be, but also as accessible as it needs to be. And when I watched it at the festival, I shouted out, and I got a few people to watch it, and everyone was just like, this is really important, this is really good. So that is my nomination for watch that film.
Okay,
you will learn important things from it, using the right voices of stuff you need to know. Phenomenal. Time, I agree with you, is just an outstanding film. Collective, which I watched recently, which was also nominated for Best Documentary, is amazing and feels like very socially important, of like the way that the story happens in real time. It feels like what if Spotlight were real, the way that it feels like it is. It feels like it is the dramatized version, because it just unveils and unveils and unveils. They don't need to dramatize this, because you're just watching reality just unfurl and unfurl and unfurl, and there's no intrusive like documentation. It just happens, and it's just astounding. I also nominated Gunda, which I watched at Glasgow Film Festival, which is a wonderful little documentary that just follows farm animals around and kind of like really like reorients your eye to them to make you realise like how the world looks from their point of view, to see humans as an alien presence as opposed to animals as an alien presence. And it doesn't anthropomorphise, it animalizes. It makes you feel de-anthropomorphized. It's a really interesting thing. Like, it's dialogueless, it's black and white, it's arty as fuck.
Sounds good to me.
But it's really cool. And like, it's the kind of thing it's the black and white pig film, but every element of it, you're like, no, that's there for a reason, that's there for a reason, that's there for a reason, and it works perfectly. And then I nominated David Byrne's American Utopia.
Never heard of it. Moving on. What did the Academy go for? Did they go for Octopus Teacher?
Yeah, the Academy nominated Time, Collective, Crip Camp, which I watched, which I've been putting off because of the name, because I do not know the name.
It's a bit,
it's called Crip Camp: A Disability Revolution. It turns out that's the name that was given to the camp in it, so it is, but I'm like, whatever. It's really good though. I'm recommended. And The Mole Agent, which I thought was decent but not great, and they gave the award not to Collective, bizarrely, but to March's Teacher.
Okay. What have our lovely audience gone for?
Our audience went for Dick Johnson is Dead, which I was really happy about because I did not nominate it.
Okay, cool. I've gone for Time. What have you gone for?
Time would be my number 3, behind Collective number 2. I think. Can you give the case for Time, because Time is spectacular?
It's a mother of 6 fighting for the release of her husband, who's been serving a 60-year prison sentence in an armed robbery, and it's just a biting look at the American judicial system. Sort of prison sentence for the rights of black people in the 21st century, and how the judicial system sort of treats them, and how the appeal situation works. And it's just it stunned me when I watched it.
Me too. And the soundtrack, which I've actually nominated later on, surprisingly, is so much of the film. For me, it does. I mean, have you seen The Act of Killing? Not The Act of Killing. A short film about killing.
The Kieslowski film.
Kieslowski movie. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I have.
So that's my go-to for doing this thing. It does the Act of Killing thing for me. A short film about killing thing. Jesus Christ. Very different films. Short film about killing thing. Well, it's very easy to make an argument about a system being bad because it mistreats an innocent person. It's a very easy thing to do.
Sure.
And though it's useful, it's not a great systemic argument. What's difficult to do is to show how the system is bad to guilty people. Yep. And that's really impressive, and it's a very vital argument. It's what Short Film About Killing does, and it's what Time does. This person did the crime, and it doesn't spend its time looking into that crime very much, because it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter at all. It's about the system.
Lock away. Throw away the key, and that's it. It's just another number in another prison.
just the way that time becomes a motif in the film, that it's about how time can be lost, how time can be spent, the idea of spending time being actually very literal, that time is a currency that you spend when you're in prison, the idea of what rehabilitation is, the idea of what does prison even do anyway, that it all comes back to this essential. I think that I love to do in writing is to take a motif and just to spin on it and spin on it.
Sure.
And that's what this film does as a documentary. It's like, let's let the idea of time, but it's about prisons, but really it's about time, and you can spend time and use time and lose time, and it's a phenomenal film. Phenomenal.
So what have you got winning? Is it?
I went for David Byrne's American Utopia.
Okay, fine. I'm happy with that, but I've got it winning things later.
Yeah, same, but
I mean, do we want to talk about that now, or do we want to talk about it later?
I think we should talk about it later. And you know what? Let's give best documentary to a documentary.
Sure, let's give it to Time.
Let's give it to Time. I think Collective is better, but Time is fabulous.
I am going to see Collective very soon. Should have seen it for this. Was too busy watching like horrible 50s B movies because I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
Moving swiftly on. Best original soundtrack.
The Bost.
The Bost. I've got. No, I think mine are all quite contemporary, quite straight laced. I don't think I've got any weird ones here.
What did you nominate for best original song? Out of interest.
Oh, did we do original song?
No, we did not. We did not.
Say God. Yeah, absolutely not. Best original song was Mank singing "It's All About Mank."
Yeah, Mank.
Okay,
Mank,
so
Mank.
my soundtrack noms are John Baptiste, Trent Reznor, and Atticus Ross for Soul.
Yep, same.
Kevin Smuts for My Octopus Teacher, a beautiful little ambient soundtrack that I loved
forgot
very
that
much.
had a soundtrack.
Emil Mosseri for Minari.
Yep, same.
Johan Johansson for Last and First Men.
Same.
And Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross for Mank.
Mank.
What about you?
Okay. All right, let's see what the Oscars did.
Okay.
That's interesting. So they did nominate the two Reznor and Ross joints. Yep. So Soul and Mank, obviously. Soul also having Jean Baptiste in there to give the jazz influence, and I think that is what kind of like.
I think that's what tipped it over.
Yeah, that tips it for me. It's the better of the two, but they're both phenomenal scores in movies that I don't like very much, but great scores.
Yeah, exactly.
They nominated To Five Bloods, and I heard a lot of people say they love the score of To Five Bloods. I don't like it, but it's an aesthetic thing for me, I guess. I think that's kind of the wrong word, but I'm not a big fan of traditional symphonic scores, and it's one of those. And in a film that's about presenting a different history, about histories that are ignored, to use a very kind of like Spielbergian kind of score just did not work for me.
Fit the aesthetic, yeah.
And yeah, it is a beautiful piece of like concert music, but no. They also nominated Emil Mosseri's Minari score, which is phenomenal, and James Newton Howard's News of the World score, which actually thinking back, I did watch that film. It's a really good score,
awesome.
And it's a pretty good film with some political issues that are interesting to unpick. I went for Johan Johansson's Last and First Men.
Awesome.
Is it Last and First or First and Last? I read it different every time.
It is Last and First.
That makes sense, because that's the thematics, isn't it? I went for Nicholas Yar's score for Ema, not Emma, Ema, E-M-A.
Full stop?
No full stop.
Oh, no.
E-M-A.
EMA, the European Medicines Agency.
Yes, the European Medicines Agency. Let me get the name of this director, because he's the guy that did Jackie, which I really liked. Yes, if I type in EMA, I also get European Medical Agency.
It is Pablo
Larraín? Yeah, Pablo Larraín. It's a film that doesn't work fully for me. It's a film that I'm happy I watched, but it's all over the place. But this film is music. It's about a dancer, and it moves to the beat of this. And when the film works, it's because of the soundtrack. It's a soundtrack I would not listen to outside of the film, probably. I have not. But as a part of the film, it is the only reason the film worked that it does. And ultimately, it is a film that I enjoyed. So I'm going to give it a nod there. Then I'm going to go for... I only chose one Reznor. Reznor, Ross, Baptiste for Soul. I went for Emil Mosseri for Minari, because I feel like that's another thing that... There are so many subtle things in Minari that elevate it past just like kitchen sink drama very cleverly. And the soundtrack is the best one of those.
Part of that, absolutely.
And then I went for, and watch me butcher a name, and I'm very sorry, Emahud Segure Mariam Gabru for Time.
Oh, awesome.
That piano is so much why that film works as well.
It's the driving force behind. Yeah. Who have the audience gone for winning?
The audience went for something that I nominated,
okay,
but didn't mention.
Oh.
I'm sure you can guess, actually. Really convincingly, the audience went for a short film called Blackberrying.
Oh, get out of town.
Yeah.
Oh. For those not in the know, I did the soundtrack for that, so we are going to have to completely throw that out the window
But it can get the audience award. I was very
audience
happy.
one. Oh, that's very nice.
Yeah.
Thank you, people.
It's a really cool soundtrack. I will speak about it because obviously you can't.
I was going to say, thank God for that.
It's very much in that kind of like industrial kind of like Eraserhead soundscape kind of thing,
Yep.
which is such a perfect match for the film that it is, which you wouldn't think to have that kind of sound for it, because like it's a really cool short that explores a very sensitive topic with the sensitivity that it demands, but the whole time it wants to keep you at a piece of a length from the drama to not feel melodramatic, and it wants to make it feel uncanny and ethereal. And the way that the composer here has done that, I think, is absolutely brilliant. Of like using those industrial sounds to get the sense that something is off, and it has that kind of like persistent noises that kind of like there are motifs that kind of come in, but it's mostly a bit just like distorted. It's a really cool soundscape to do everything the film needs to do that it can't do narratively, that it can't do with dialogue, to make the whole piece work artistically. It's a really cool short. Check it out if you haven't.
The link is in the description.
Yes.
Oh, well, that's very nice. Thank you all, people. I will take that, and this is my acceptance speech. I'd like to thank Brad Pitt for helping me off this stage.
Where were you, Brad Pitt? Where were you when we were filming?
So, is Time your winner? Who have you got winning?
No, my winner's Minari. I feel
Awesome.
like Neil Masseri's soundtrack to that is just really, really cool. Just that moment. Weirdly, kind of like the weakest moment of the film for me is the strongest soundtrack moment. There was a moment at the end where a thing happens, I'm like, this didn't need to happen.
Okay.
But the music is so good there, I'm like, I didn't need to hear it though.
I've gone for Soul, just because that is the soundtrack that I listen to the most, and Soul is a film about music, and I think not even necessarily the Reznor and Ross sections, but I think the John Batiste sections, jazz influence are phenomenal. Batiste is an artist, is a pianist that I've been following for a number of years, and seeing him on the Soul soundtrack, I was, just so excited for this film that ultimately I did not really like. Okay, so who do we want to give it to out of Soul and...
I want to give
Minari?
a shout out to a film that I nominated, and I can't remember if you did or not. Last and First Man.
Oh yeah,
Because
absolutely.
It is the last soundtrack of one of the great modern composers.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a film that is solely driven by its stunning visuals and a very, very good soundtrack.
Yeah, so Gone Far Too Soon, a phenomenal last work, and we're going to talk a bit more about last works later. But yeah, I'm going to give that a nod for like a bit of remembrance, but I think you're right. I think Soul should be the winner.
Okay, cool. Here's a very strange category, and I'm certain we probably won't have seen most of each other's picks for best short, but here we go.
Yeah, I saw some weird shorts this year. So this is...
I was going through my letterbox to find anything that could be nominated, because I didn't really spend time looking through contemporary, shorts from the last year.
My list is not reflective of the best shorts of the year. I need to say that. It's reflective of the things that I saw.
Absolutely.
So if you are thinking, why didn't you nominate that? I either hated it or didn't see it.
I think out of the nominations, I love 2 of them, and the rest are just shorts that I saw.
I mean, I know we're going to have at least 1 the same, 2 if you've seen them.
Ooh, okay. Okay, so here we go. Playdate with Destiny, which was a Disney Plus Simpsons short featuring Maggie Simpson.
I have no idea what that even is.
Stilts by Dylan Holmes Williams, which was a film for, if I remember right, it was a film for funded short that screened before my premiere of The Lighthouse a while ago.
Oh, then I guess I saw that.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. Wait, did you see it in Manchester?
Yeah.
It's the very strange short about a man on stilts.
Yes.
It's that memorable. I also have Jonathan Glazer's The Fall, an experimental little short.
Oh, I watched that so long ago. I didn't even think that counted.
I've got the Safdie Brothers Goldman versus Silverman, which was filmed
I saw that. That's fun.
Around the same time as Uncut Gems. And I've got Guy Madden and Evan Johnson's Stump the Guesser.
I have one of those.
Okay, cool.
The other one I guess you haven't seen, but it's your kind of thing. So, can we get the audience vote out of the way?
Go on.
Obviously Blackberrying was not counted in this award, and it did get some votes from our audience, which is very, very nice and deserved, because it is actually very, very good. However, a film in no way released in any year, but that is a short film, arguably.
It's definitely shot on film.
Yeah, I'm going to let you tell us what won the audience poll.
I'm assuming it's the Zapruder film.
Yeah.
It's footage.
What is that, Jack? What is that?
This is a running joke on film Twitter, and I've sort of brought it into the Letterboxd server. It's a silent 8mm motion picture shot by a man called Abraham Zapruder on the day that US President John F. Kennedy was shot in the head.
Yeah.
Or shoulder, or back, I forget. And, good short. That's what it says on the tin.
Jesus! Award-winning.
Award-winning. Very well deserved. It's short. It's definitely a film. That's all I have to
not
say.
seen this. I never want to see this. I do not condone its inclusion, but I can't.
It's an important piece of history. Moving swiftly onwards, what have you got winning?
All right, so I've nominated, first of all.
Of course.
I nominated Matty Diop's In My Room, which was... I forget what the company are called. Like, Miu Miu, like a clothing brand or something. Okay. And they do this, like... every year, female shorts, some large shorts, they've had a whole host of really good directors. They've had Lynn Ramsey, I believe. They've definitely had Agnes Varda. They've had so many important voices in film. Matty Diop, who you either know from her being fantastic in 35 Shots of Rum, which is a phenomenal movie.
So the Denny's film.
From Claire Denis, one of my faves. Or you know her from her directorial debut, Atlantics, which is a great movie, really great movie. Expanded from her short, Atlantiques. Awesome. So she did a short this year, and I saw several COVID shorts this year. It is a COVID short. But it's one of the better ones of those. It is. I watched it a couple of times. It's got quite a lot of sniffy reviews on Letterboxd specifically of people being like, it's a COVID thing. It's a really good film about her being in a place she didn't expect to be living in and being stuck in that room and having to do a clothing advert in that room and aware of the ridiculousness of that. It's so self-aware of it being an advert. It's so self-aware of the restrictions. And it's so self-aware of being like, she has this beautiful skyline but is stuck into it. It's one of the first COVID shorts that I saw. I think it's a really good one. I wrote quite a lot about it on my blog on Letterboxd. I recommend that. I also nominated Yorgos Lanthimos' Nimic, which is really cool.
Is that... It was a movie...
Yeah.
I think I still haven't seen that.
Yorgos Lanthimos made a short film, and it is very Yorgos Lanthimos-y. If you've seen any Yorgos Lanthimos film, it's like that.
Expect, yeah.
I nominated The Long Goodbye. You're thinking, wait, the Robert Altman movie? No. The Riz Ahmed film, the short that he made as a promotional piece for his album by the same name, I believe, but also a short film in its own right that very much deals with, let's say, Islamophobia in this country and the violent police reaction in this country and just prejudice in this country being Britain. And it kind of like starts with the most like perfect slice of verisimilitude of just like, here's a normal family doing normal things in a house, and then it just pure escalation into a horrendous ending that you kind of can see coming because you know what this country is like and what society is like.
Sure.
And it ends with him performing one of the tracks as he is being pushed onto the floor. And it's this great melding of just like him, because he's a rapper in his own right, of his lyricism and what he can push to make a really profound statement. I know that Calvin from the Discord, Calvin Kemp, film critic from thetwingeeks.com, great website. The definite article is really what ascends that thing. I pointed this out to him. I'm gonna take the credit for this. Maybe I didn't. Told him to watch it because he really liked Mogul Mowgli. And he really liked Sound of Metal, and I said, have you seen The Long Goodbye? Because I think that is another great performance from Riz Ahmed this year. And he's like, nope. And he actually voted for this as his short of the year.
Oh, awesome.
It's not mine, but it's really, really good.
Cool.
I also voted for Stump the Guesser.
Lovely stuff.
Because it's so good. And ultimately, I'm giving my award to Cold Meridian.
Oh, okay, interesting. I went for Stump the Guesser just because it is... what was it, about 16, 17 minutes? And
it's so good.
It's probably the best 16, 17 minutes I've had since COVID began. It's just, I'm sure I'm going to talk about him later, but Guy Maddin and Evan Johnson, very, very strange Canadian filmmakers. and this is like a silent black and white short.
Soviet inflected.
Yes, absolutely. And it stars Adam Brooks from the aforementioned Psycho Gorman, Stack
Psycho
nominated.
Gorman himself.
And that was absolutely some of the best 16 minutes I've had in my life. But yeah,
it's a really good. I mean, I gave the nod to Peter Strickland's Comedian because I just love Peter Strickland.
Sure.
Peter Strickland has been obsessed by ASMR for a long time, which you can tell from the sound design of his films. So he made an ASMR film. But it's very much about watching ASMR, and it has levels of like narrative framings of like sometimes you're watching the thing, then you're watching the person watching the thing, and it very much makes you question your involvement in watching things and the enjoyment you get out of those things. And are you a voyeur? Are you an enjoyer? And it's like 6 minutes long. It's just the length to suggest the ideas and to make you question some important things while never telling you to think things. Some films need to say to think things because they're about really important issues. Some films need to get you to think about things you otherwise would not think about, and that's one of those. However, I think that Stump the Guesser, because we both loved it, should be our overall stack.
Hell yeah.
It's got guessing milk in it. Guessing milk.
It's a melding plot of ideas and themes and just visual ideas that I didn't know I needed to see.
Yeah, I'm not even going to go for what the Oscars went for because they have like animated and
Who
they
cares?
have live action, and I generally don't care.
Cinematography.
Oh god, I went so weird here.
I have a film nominated for cinematography that I despised, but I think looked very good. That film is called Malcolm and Marie. I think it's some of the best.
I have that nominated elsewhere.
Best black and white photography and cinematography I've seen in recent years, and compared to the black and white cinematography of Mank, I think it's a much better visual look. But again, that is a film I think is absolutely horrendous, but it looks
it's a crap
great.
movie.
So that's why I saw so many people defending it solely because it looks good, but that is not enough to save what is a very, very abysmal script. So cinematography, Malcolm and Marie, I've gone for Last and First Men, which is, again, another beautiful, beautiful black and white film.
Almost that one for me.
Possessor, I think.
Should have gone for that.
Minari, very clean, crisp, beautiful.
Should have gone for that.
And Nomadland, which I think looks great. And Chloe Zhao knows what she's doing when she makes film.
Our nominees are entirely different.
Love to see it. Let's go. What have we got?
Entirely different. So, all right, I went really weird here. Actually, let's go for what the Oscars went for first, because the Oscars is very emblematic of what they like.
Sure.
So they gave it to Mank, which is ridiculous. I don't think that film looks very good.
It does not.
I get that it's trying to be Citizen Kane, but I watched Citizen Kane just before it. Again, rewatched it, obviously. Citizen Kane looks better.
It's trying to emulate, techniques from 70 years ago, and it just fails. If you want to watch a film with crisp black and white that emulates that of old Hollywood, go watch Tim Burton's Ed Wood. A fantastic film.
But there are loads of films to do that, and like the Mank is getting the prestige. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
they also nominated Judas and the Black Messiah, which controversially I don't think is a good-looking movie, but everyone else does.
Dark and dank, and I don't know. It's a bit musty for my tastes.
I hate the lighting in it. I know that I have been mocked for this several times. I really hate the lighting in this movie because it's so overlit on the backgrounds that it gives the sense that every scene is its own micro-universe, and that's... I think it's emblematic of my issue of the film as a whole, which we're going to talk about a bit more later. Maybe we haven't, because we're not really nominated for much. For that reason, really. Like, this film felt like microcosms, but in the bad way. It needed to be a much more wider history and historical portrait, but it felt like snapshots where the end of the frame was the end of history, and history goes far beyond the frame. And the fact that every window was just a portrait of light, alluding to the fact there is no greater reality here, just cemented that for me. And it looks kind of pretty, I guess, but... News of the World nominated, beautiful looking film.
Did not see, cannot comment.
It's good, it's worth watching. I mean, again, political compunctions with it. It's what you expect from the director. It's not the time to go into that. If you want to read my political kind of like unpicking of that, I wrote about it. Nomadland, which I was sure was going to win, and Charlie Chicago 7, which is not a good film on any level,
but good use of camera.
I would say no. So I went really weird here because I decided that I don't want to give it to prettiest film. I wanted to give it to a film that used cinematography as another part of filmmaking.
Sure, that's great.
In which the camera was as much a part of the thematic expression as any other part. So my things here are weird.
Okay.
I'm going to start with the couple of conventional ones. So I think First Cow is a beautiful looking film, and it splits the difference. So Christopher Blauville's cinematography here is phenomenal, but the use of the 4x3 in the Justice League model, Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Fuck off. Oh God!
Sorry, he referenced this film in his statement. He said it's like First Cow. Okay, so there you go.
Fine.
She's done this before in so Kelly Reichardt, obviously not the cinematographer, but is the director. Christopher Blauvelt is the cinematographer.
Sure.
But Meek's Cutoff, which is another great Kelly Reichardt film, she, again, I forget if it's exactly 4x3, but it's a constrained ratio. Jennifer Kent's The Nightingale is very similar to the central metaphor of Westerns, which these three films are usually how wide can we make the screen? How wide to show exactly, being like, because it's all about this like untamed open land of opportunity, and what she firmly believes is no, it's not. It's a land of opportunity for very few people. For most people, it is a closed off environment, and the way that that's conveyed through the closed off screen is absolutely beautiful. And because the cinematographer is so good, the way things are framed inside that kind of like that is almost a box is really beautifully done. I mean, in Meek's Cutoff, she said that she felt the 4x3 was to simulate the ladies' bonnets, that their view of the world was so restricted, which is such a cool thing to have said.
It's a really nice read. I like that.
And it shows how much she thinks about this stuff, and that First Cow ultimately is about little people's lives in grander pictures, and the way it constrains the frame to show that, but it still keeps the beauty. It finds the beauty in the small things by making you focus in, and the frame makes you focus in. I mean, it is my winner for this category, actually. It's beautiful. I then went for Helen Louvret's cinematography for Never Ready, Sometimes Always.
Okay, nice.
Which is not a conventionally beautiful film.
No.
But ultimately, it's a film about bodily autonomy.
Sure.
And the cinematography is always focusing on parts of bodies, often parts that are kind of like cut off from other parts, in this really interesting way where, again, the themes of the film are shown visually, of by focusing in on bodies in absentia, or just this one part of the body, it makes us think about bodies and how they are used, how they are blocked off, how they are fetishized, how they are thought about outside of people. And I feel the film is not because it has a really clear message, but is never a polemic, and I feel that it manages that through polemical cinematography, which sounds like a weird thing to say, but it actually works for me, in which a lot of the argument about how we commodify people is being done through the camera's lens, not through the dialogue. I've then gone for Ellen Kuris's stuff in American Utopia, because the things they do with the camera in that to really, again, accentuate
elevates the stage performance,
I didn't see the stage performance because I was an idiot that was just like not in that much. But the way the themes of like collective action, the way the themes of like togetherness and connection, which is the central theme of that thing, I'm going to watch some again soon because I've written a lot of reviews about it. Well, one review twice that's very much been like, here's why it's a good film. I read the Sight and Sound review, which I thought was good, but they talked about how the soundtrack isn't as good as Stop Making Sense, and I'm like, okay, it's not. As a soundtrack album, it is not. But as a curated
that's not
list,
necessarily the point.
Yeah, it tells a narrative through its songs, and that's why it's so good. So therefore, I'm like, you can't just say they're not as banging. Yeah, they're not as banging, but but they build, and there's a narrative through these songs, and the cinematography captures that really beautifully. My last two are, again, these are my strange Stephen choices. Roy Anderson's film, his last film about endlessness, Gergely Palos, or Gergely Palos. If you've seen a Roy Anderson film, they look like that. And this is pretty much my award for every Roy Anderson film. They all look the same.
It's such a strange visual style that I can't
it's so cool.
I can't help
That's what film can do.
By.
That's what film can do. And I'm like, yes, like, News of the World looks great, and Nomadland looks great, but like, they're Western riffs. Like,
yeah, sure,
cool.
sure.
And finally, I'm going to... Hong Sang-soo's film, The Woman Who Ran, again, this is because I just love the way they shoot film. Kim Soo-min is the cinematographer. Just these movies are just people talking, and it's just these perfectly framed things where stuff just happens in the frame, and every now and then it zooms in. But these films are nothing without the visual language, and it's the kind of film that would never get celebrated for that, because it's not pretty. It's not, here's a vista. But the way that it allows things to happen, the film is purely the visuals, because it's so unobtrusive, it doesn't get awards, and it should get awards because it's a choice, and it's perfect, and it's brilliant. And to pull off these long takes is exceptional, and to have the clarity of the cinematography, and to know when to zoom and what to zoom in on, and to know how long to hold it, to know exactly how to... If you're going to have only one shot... I know we've got a person that we both know who talks about angles in films, and the fact that, long shots aren't angles. You pick one angle, to pick the one angle and go with it.
And have the confidence to stick with it.
That's a much bolder decision, and these films, all of the oeuvre here does that. I think their films are phenomenal, and this is the most recent one, and it's a really good one of those. So Kim Soo-min's work on The Woman Who Ran, the Hong Sang-soo movie, I want to just elevate.
Awesome. I need to check that out. Again, did not do my homework as much as I should have done. My winner... Oh, we got an audience. Have we got an audience pick?
Yeah, the audience went for Nomadland.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's a very pretty film that
film,
blends the industrial landscape in with the conventional kind of like Western kind of like semiotics. Good. Fine.
I went for Last and First Men. There's the Norwegian cinematographer Sturla Brandt Groveland. Sorry about the pronunciation. It's just a beautifully stark dystopian world, and there's the architecture that the camera revolves around is stunning. And I think some of the ways in which the camera moves throughout, this landscape is just it's incredible, and matches Tilda Swinton's voice and Johan Johansson's score beautifully. And
that's a really good choice. I went for First Cow.
Awesome.
I don't know what we should decide on here because we've gone completely different.
I'm gonna get a coin and we're just gonna flip it. Yeah, I think First Cow looks great too. I still need to see Meek's Cutoff. It's been on my watch list since the dawn of time, and
it was the first film. It was the first film.
First Cow, first film.
Yeah. All right. First Cow. There you go. Maybe the only award it's going to get. So
we'll see. Okay. Best Underseen film. This is a fun category. So this is basically 5 films from the past year that we think that not enough people have been talking about, or I don't know, the numbers on the Letterboxd page are lower than we'd like, and we want to just give them a special shout out. I'll go first. My 5. I've gone with Sisters with Transistors, which is a documentary.
I'm going to say this for all of them. Oh, I want to see that.
About the female pioneers of electro-acoustic music and electronics from the 50s through to contemporary era. I think it premiered at a doc festival early this year or late last year, and I've wanted to see it for so long. My background is in music and music production, so a lot of it is treading familiar ground to me. But if you want to get into electronic music or have any interest in the physics sides of things or just the general history of women in music, Sisters with Transistors, it's a fantastic documentary. My next one is a concert film / concert documentary, and that's called Tripping with Niels Fram.
I almost watched that. It was on Mubi for a while,
yes,
but I don't know who he is.
Fantastic live performance. Niels Fram is a contemporary neoclassical composer, uses pianos and all these little homemade synths to make big swelling ambient soundscapes, and the way in which he uses the architecture of the venue in his live performance I think was phenomenal, and that was one.
Would you say it's the best concert film of the year?
Nope, but it's pretty good. I'm going to give another shout out to Last and First Men, because I just don't see as many people talking about it, and I think it's a sublime.
You're not the only person to give a shout out
to it. And then I've got 2 very big Jack picks for my last 2. I've got a documentary called Hopper / Wells, which is literally just like a 2-hour conversation between Orson Welles and Dennis Hopper.
God, I don't know if I could stand that.
What if I told you that Orson Welles is pretty much interviewing Dennis Hopper, and Orson Welles is taking on the persona of John Huston's character from what was that film called? John Huston's The Other Side of the Wind, the final Orson Welles one.
Oh God, I've still not seen that.
It's bizarre. It's basically Orson Welles putting Dennis Hopper on blast, because it was filmed at a time when Dennis Hopper was still like an up and comer. And obviously Orson Welles was Orson Welles, and it's just a fantastic. It's basically a podcast, but I think it's hilarious, and it's a really interesting.
I don't know. I really like both those figures, but I feel those figures, for me, their energy is they need to be the different person in the room, and both of them together, I'm just like, I don't know if I can deal with that.
Can we have 2 limelights? There's only one way to find out. And obviously the best underseen film of last year, or I think technically it came out 2019, but no one talks about this film, is African Kung Fu Nazis, which is some of the best homegrown...
Our choices are so different.
Some of the best homegrown action cinema, genre film exploitation. it's a fantastic film. It's not this side of Hollywood and all those who filmed Captain Alex films. It's more of like a westernization of those sort of things, but it's the middle ground, and it's a fantastic 90 minutes of just African kung fu Nazis.
Wow, I mean, leading from that,
Go from that into whatever art house you're talking about.
Yeah, no, I've gone very art house here because I don't know, like this is
your wheelhouse. Let's go.
The two sides of my wheelhouse are like, where's the horrible violent movie, and then where's the most like arty pretentious thing that no one else is ever going to see. Mm-hmm. So I think this kind of shows a bit of both that actually. There's one little kind of like horror movie, and then the other four are just very arty.
Sure.
So I'm going to start with the one that links to Kung Fu Nazis or whatever it was called. Mm-hmm. So I've picked this movie that I don't know where you'd watch it, because I watched it as part of the Film Africa Festival.
Okay.
So this is part of the new wave of Nigerian cinema, which I was not aware of, but Nigeria is having a new wave right now.
Awesome.
About time. Because like Nollywood is obviously a huge film industry, but only in Nigeria.
Sure.
And it's got that place where kind of like, it's fascinating watching nascent film industries. Obviously, it is old for itself, but it's nascent on the international stage. And you're seeing very much Nollywood in the space where Hollywood was for a long time, and kind of still is, of sense of being like, these are very restricted, now quite boring films, where the novelty of making a film is kind of worn off, and that's just like, yep, studio features. That's what they feel like. So the Nigerian New Wave is dealing with a lot of themes that have not been done, and are more transgressive in this society. Because art has not dealt with them as much as it has here. This film is for Maria Eben Pataki, which is a very hard film to remember because it's just a name, and it's a name for a character film. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's a great film. I think it's a very flawed construct as a film. It has issues of being like, the people involved have not made films before, and it's very, very obvious. However, it is a brutal and necessary depiction of postpartum depression.
Oh, wow.
And it entirely focuses on that. And this is such a thing. This would be a taboo in an American film, or in an English film. And we have films that have dealt with this already. And this feels like a really important slice of cinema from a community that is underrepresented, even in their own society, who are giving voice to issues that are not spoken about. And there are cultural nuances here that obviously I am deeply unaware of, but this film sent such ripples and was seen as being such a vital thing that it got included in the festival, despite it being so shonky and so rough around the edges. I think no one's going to see this film, but I think that if you can, you really should. Awesome. Not because it's great, or just read what I wrote about it, or look up into it, or follow what they're doing in the future,
sure, or
just look into African cinema in general, specifically the Nigerian New Wave, because it's a really cool thing. So for Maria Eben Pataki is really, really cool. Keeping in the very serious bent for now, also a film called Overseas. Okay. Which is I put this here because I wanted to nominate it for documentary, and I thought, no, I'll put it here instead. This is a documentary about Filipino overseas workers. There's a term for it. They might be called OFWs. It's about modern slavery, basically. It's absolutely gut-wrenching, but it's so important. It is about how systemically, by the government of the Philippines, their women are sent overseas to work as maids in a way where they know they're not going to get paid. They know, well, they're going to get kind of paid, but not for their hours. They know that they're going to... And the film is too arty for its own good, in a way that makes it a beautiful film, but in a way that makes it inaccessible to most people. So I do think there's an issue of being like, people are already not going to watch this film. It's why I like because I flip between this or In Search for my documentary choice. And I think In Search is better because it is an accessible film about an important topic. You can watch this not being a film person and watch, I need to know about FGM, and I've watched it. This, if you're not a film person, you'll be like, why is this so... It does kind of like the act of killing thing to an extent of... It is centred in the training camp where they are taught how to cope with the things that we'll deal with. So it's all about performance and performativity, and it's got lots of like B-roll, arty stuff. It's really important, but I think it is alienatingly arty. But the stuff that it shows you is it's very hard to talk about. There is like a workshop about how they're going to deal with the fact that they will get raped. That's going to happen, God. And this is what you do about that. And they're saying, who can you talk to? Well, you can't tell this person. It's there to deal with what happens when you get hit. What happens when the person does you? And the film deals into the politics of all this stuff, the economics, how a huge part of the economy is very reliant on this. It's so important, and it really needs to be seen. It's very good, but I do think it's a bit alienating. I nominated Lynn and Lucy, which is a kind of like kitchen sink, kind of like British drama about like working class identities, and about... I don't want to get into too much what it's about, because like what it's actually about is a narrative beat partway through, but it's about working class women getting by in Britain and how easy it is to fall out of favour and to become just like a social pariah in really important ways. And when a horrible thing happens, and the sphere of blame and how we deal with people that we think have done horrible things, even if they are also kind of victims. The same way, it's who is the victim and who is the it's complicated. Why I've picked it is I feel like every few years, like a random indie British film about working class people just becomes like the toast of the town.
Sure.
And I thought this film was going to be that, and it just wasn't. I'm like, this film could have been, I guess because it's not happy, so it's never going to be the next Billy Elliot, but it feels like there's a taste for this kind of film, and then this one was just ignored, which is a shame. Relic, did you see Relic?
No, I have not seen Relic.
It's a kind of new movie. It's a female-directed horror movie. It is a film that I don't think is very good.
Okay.
And then the last 10 minutes are one of the best last 10 minutes of anything I've ever seen.
Oh, well, now you've sold it to me.
It does a visual metaphor at the end. It is ultimately a film about degenerative conditions, and the way that it articulates that with the horror genre and with iconography is just amazing. And I wish someone did that the whole way through, and it justifies this kind of like, it's an okay movie with like obvious metaphors, a bit like overdosing the horror imagery, and then it has this moment at the end that is just like, wow. And finally, the Whalebone Box.
Oh yeah, the Cotting film.
Yeah, Cotting film. I'd not seen a Cotting film before. It's very, very cool.
Really?
It's very, very strange. It's 100% my kind of jam. Most people hate it. That's great. I don't care. It's this great subjective, is it true, is it false, what is truth, what is false. Ultimately, it's really a film about a father and a daughter, about what they will do to keep a relationship going and to keep connection, and how objects keep us together, and outside of that. It's really, really cool. Awesome. Of those, I'm saying Overseas is my winner, because I think it's the most important.
And I'm going with African Kung Fu Nazis, but you know what? It's fine. Did we have an audience pick for this?
Yeah, we do. At one point, I will go through all of their films and maybe post it somewhere.
Yeah. I was going to say I'm going to make a big letterbox list of all the films that have been mentioned.
Because they mentioned some cool stuff that I'd never heard of. I was like, yeah, that was Underseen. They also mentioned stuff. I'm like, that was not Underseen. That was very popular.
That was one of the most popular films of the year. Okay.
And they also mentioned some stuff, and I was like, that was Underseen because it was shit.
Awesome.
But ultimately, they went for the only one that got multiple votes. Really, a few did. Was Last and First Men.
Okay, awesome.
So
that's great.
Really cool.